Hi class, Mrs. Forbes here again. Today we're going to be working on assignment 6 for English 2A. And for this assignment, we are going to be reading the speech at the United Nations by Malala Yousafzai. And you can find this where it says assignment 6, page 15 in the unit 2 packet. Again, we're going to be looking for unfamiliar words, the thesis, main ideas, and supporting details while we read. And another thing we need to do is we need to try to find a quote that is our favorite quote while we read. So think about that while you're listening, and if something stands out to you as important or particularly interesting, then make sure you note it, because I will not tell you what quote to pick. You will have to pick one. Okay, so we're on page 308 in your textbook. The author, Malala Yousafzai, was born in 1997. She was born and raised in the Swat Valley of Pakistan. In 2007, the area was invaded by the Taliban, a radical Islamist group. When the Taliban outlawed education for girls, Yousafzai spoke out, becoming a highly visible advocate. For this reason, when she was just 15 years old, a member of the Taliban shot her in the head. Miraculously, she recovered. Since then, she has spoken publicly about universal education and gender equality. In 2014, she became the youngest person ever awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. So what we are going to be reading is going to be a speech at the United Nations that she is giving with the purpose of trying to get education for all people, and mainly women, because that is the thing that the Taliban was trying to prevent, was trying to prevent women from gaining an education. And that's what Malala Yousafzai spoke out against. The Taliban emerged following the defeat and withdrawal of Russian forces from Afghanistan in the early 1990s. The Taliban's mission is to restore its interpretation of strict Sharia or Islamic law, which calls for such things as banning music, covering the faces of women, and forbidding school for girls. By the time Malala Yousafzai was growing up in northern Pakistan, the Taliban were a major force in her area. So Malala is going to speak at the United Nations as someone who was shot by the Taliban and lived to tell her story. And she has become an ambassador for girls around the world who are being silenced. And so this is how she starts her speech. In the name of God, the most beneficent, the most merciful, Honorable UN Secretary General, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, respected President of the General Assembly, Vuk Jeremic, Honorable UN Envoy for Global Education, Mr. Gordon Brown, respected elders, and my dear brothers and sisters. Today, it is an honor for me to be speaking again after a long time. Being here with such honorable people is a great moment in my life. I don't know where to begin my speech. I don't know what people would be expecting me to say. But first of all, thank you to God, for whom we are all equal. And thank you to every person who has prayed for my fast recovery and a new life. I cannot believe how much love people have shown me. I have received thousands of good wish cards and gifts from all over the world. Thank you to all of them. Thank you to the children whose innocent words encouraged me. Thank you to my elders whose prayers strengthened me. I would like to thank my nurses, doctors, and the staff of hospitals in Pakistan and the UK and the UAE government who have helped me get better and recover my strength. I fully support Mr. Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General in his Global Education First initiative and the work of the UN Special Envoy, Mr. Gordon Brown. And I thank them both for the leadership they continue to give. They continue to inspire all of us to action. Okay, so this is her thesis, really, where she says, I fully support in his Global Education First initiative. So, well, I guess we can underline all of it. So right on the side, thesis, and we'll put in for some reason, because, well, probably because she wrote the book I Am Malala, but oftentimes she is referred to by her first name instead of her last name. So I'm just going to keep referring to her by her first name, but mostly you're going to refer to people by their last name. So Malala is speaking in support of the Global Education First initiative. Now it asks us to write down what we think initiative means. Well, it says, maybe we could guess that it's a call to action, an initiative, just because there's a clue here, inspire us all to action. So initiative maybe is a call to action, but I'm not quite sure exactly what the definition of initiative is. So that's just what we're supposed to do, though. It's just supposed to guess when we get to these parts. Okay. So now we'll continue in paragraph 9. Dear brothers and sisters, do remember one thing. Malala Day is not my day. Today is the day of every woman, every boy, and every girl who have raised their voice for their rights. There are hundreds of human rights activists and social workers who are not only speaking for their rights, but who are struggling to achieve their goals of peace, education, and equality. Thousands of people have been killed by terrorists and millions have been injured. I am just one of them. So it sounds like she's also talking about, I guess that day was going to be called Malala Day. So it's a day that they're recognizing her on. And then she talks about today is a day of every woman, every boy, and every girl who has raised their voice for their rights. This is a big theme in this unit, raising your voice for their rights. And then goals of peace, education, equality. So again, the For Freedom speech and then JFK speech, the inaugural address, and now Malala's speech all have to do with this idea of spreading rights to people throughout the world. So she says, so here I stand, one girl among many. I speak, not for myself, but for all girls and boys. I raise up my voice so that I can shout. I raise up my voice, not so that I can shout, but so those without a voice can be heard. Those who have fought for their rights, their right to live in peace, their right to be treated with dignity, their right to equality of opportunity, their right to be educated. Okay, so she raises up her voice. She speaks not for herself, but for all boys and girls. And she speaks for these rights. So rights, Malala speaks up for. So these are the rights that she believes are most important in the world. Dear friends, on the 9th of October, 2012, the Taliban shot me on the left side of my forehead. They shot my friends too. They thought that the bullets would silence us, but they failed. And then out of that silence came thousands of voices. The terrorists thought that they would change my aims and stop my ambitions, but nothing changed in my life except this. Weakness, fear, and hopelessness died. Strength, power, and courage were born. I am the same Malala. My ambitions are the same. My hopes are the same. My dreams are the same. So the Taliban thought the bullets would silence them. But she says, weakness, fear, and hopelessness died, but strength, power, and courage were born from those bullets. So the Taliban are a group of older men, like not school-age men, who are trying to spread their religious beliefs. And Malala was a young girl who was still in school, who was trying to share her own beliefs, and she was speaking out for education of women, and she wanted to be educated. She was a woman, but she was upset that the Taliban was trying to take away her education. So these big, scary men, they were afraid of Malala's words. They were afraid that the fact that she spoke out against the Taliban, that would weaken the Taliban. And so they responded to Malala's words by trying to kill her, by trying to silence her. But Malala is going to speak and say, you know what? Words are powerful, obviously. Otherwise, they wouldn't have tried to shoot me. Dear sisters and brothers, I am not against anyone. Neither am I here to speak in terms of personal revenge against the Taliban or any other terrorist group. I am here to speak up for the right of education of every child. I want education for the sons and daughters of the Taliban and all terrorists and extremists. So she is here to speak up for the right of education for all children. So once education for all children, even the children of the people who shot her. She wants education for everyone. I do not even hate the Talib who shot me. Even if there is a gun in my hand and he stands in front of me, I would not shoot him. This is the compassion that I have learned from Muhammad, the prophet of mercy, Jesus Christ and Lord Buddha. This is the legacy of change that I have inherited from Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, and Muhammad Ali Jinnah. This is the philosophy of nonviolence that I have learned from Gandhiji, Baka Khan, and Mother Teresa. And this is the forgiveness that I have learned from my father and mother. This is what my soul is telling me. Be peaceful and love everyone. Dear sisters and brothers, we realize the importance of light when we see darkness. We realize the importance of our voice when we are silenced. In the same way, when we were in Swat, the north of Pakistan, we realized the importance of pens and books when we saw guns. The wise saying, the pen is mightier than the sword, is true. The extremists were, and they are, afraid of books and pens. The power of education frightens them. They are afraid of women. The power of the voice of women frightens them. And that is why they killed 14 innocent students in the recent attack in Quetta. And that is why they killed female teachers and polio workers in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and FATA. That is why they are blasting schools every day, because they were and they are afraid of change, afraid of the quality that we will bring into our society. Okay, this wise saying, the pen is mightier than the sword. This is called a proverb, and you're going to need that later for part of the assignment. But remember how I told you earlier that they were afraid of books and pens. So the pen is mightier than the sword is showing you that you can gain a lot more from writing and speaking your mind, and for supporting causes instead of trying to silence people and to kill people. That's not a way to get others to want to join you. So the extremists were afraid of books and pens, afraid of education, afraid of women, and afraid of the power of the voice of women. From paragraph 19. I remember that there was a boy in our school who was asked by a journalist, "Why are the Taliban against education?" He answered very simply by pointing to his book. He said, "A Talib doesn't know what is written inside this book. They think that God is a tiny little conservative being who would send girls to hell just because of going to school. The terrorists are misusing the name of Islam in Pashtun society for their own personal benefits. Pakistan is a peace-loving, democratic country. Pashtuns want education for their daughters and sons. And Islam is a religion of peace, humanity, and brotherhood. Islam says that it is not only each child's right to get an education, rather, it is their duty and responsibility." Okay, up here where she says, "I remember," this is called an anecdote. And we're going to need that later, but I just want you to make sure you mark the proverb and make sure you mark the anecdote. And again, you're looking for a quote that you think is most important, and you are going to be making sure to underline that quote if you see it while I'm reading, or just any quote that you think is interesting. We're on paragraph 20. Honorable Secretary General, peace is necessary for education. In many parts of the world, especially Pakistan and Afghanistan, terrorism, wars, and conflicts stop children to go to their schools. We are really tired of these wars. Women and children are suffering in many ways and in many parts of the world. In India, innocent and poor children are victims of child labor. Many schools have been destroyed in Nigeria. People in Afghanistan have been affected by the hurdles of extremism for decades. Young girls have to do domestic child labor and are forced to get married at an early age. Poverty, ignorance, injustice, racism, and the deprivation of basic rights are the main problems faced by both men and women. So this is one of her key points. Peace is necessary for education. And then she says that these are the main problems faced by people. Main problems faced by people. So it's kind of like what FDR said. Human right or freedom means the supremacy of human rights everywhere. So for Malala, she believes that people need basic human rights in order for anything to be possible. And in order for education to be possible, we need peace. So peace is only possible when we have basic rights. So it's kind of like it all goes together. We need human rights. We need these rights in order to have peace. And peace means no war. And if we have peace, we have education. Paragraph 21. Dear fellows, today I am focusing on women's rights and girls' education because they are suffering the most. There was a time when women, social activists, asked men to stand up for their rights, but this time we will do it by ourselves. I'm not telling men to step away from speaking for women's rights. Rather, I am focusing on women to be independent, to fight for themselves. Dear sisters and brothers, now it's time to speak up. So today we call upon the world leaders to change their strategic policies in favor of peace and prosperity. We call upon the world leaders that all the peace deals must protect women and children's rights. A deal that goes against the rights of women is unacceptable. We call upon all governments to ensure free compulsory education all over the world for every child. We call upon all governments to fight against terrorism and violence, to protect children from brutality and harm. We call upon the developed nations to support the expansion of educational opportunities for girls in the developing world. We call upon all communities to be tolerant, to reject prejudice based on caste, creed, sect, color, religion, or gender, to ensure freedom and equality for women so that they can flourish. We cannot all succeed when half of us are held back. I like this quote. I'm going to underline that. We call upon our sisters around the world to be brave, to embrace the strength within themselves and realize their full potential. So I'm going to underline the we call upon. Remember, repetition is a key persuasive tool that speakers use in order to make a point. So she repeats the phrase we call upon to make her point. So in this, I think, is her kind of main point. We call upon our sisters of the world to find strength and realize their full potential. So she wants women around the world to speak up for their rights. Or to fight for their rights. Dear brothers and sisters, we want schools and education for every child's bright future. We will continue our journey to our destination of peace and education. No one can stop us. We will speak up for our rights, and we will bring change through our voice. We believe in the power and the strength of our words. Our words can change the whole world. So we believe in the power and strength of our words. And she says our words can change the whole world. Remember the question I asked at the beginning of the unit? What can you do to help ensure rights, human rights for all people? Well, use your words. Speak out. Because we are all together united for the cause of education, and if we want to achieve our goal, let us empower ourselves with the weapon of knowledge, and let us shield ourselves with unity and togetherness. I like how she calls knowledge a weapon that can empower us. So knowledge gives us strength, it gives us power. That's why people in power don't want to educate others, because education would give those people power. Education would give the people who are educated power. So the people who are above, who say, no, you should not get an education, there's a reason they're saying that. There's a reason they're trying to stop you from getting educated, because they don't want to lose their power. Because they're afraid if you get more knowledge, then you will start to speak out and you will start to fight for things that you think are right, that this person knows they're taking away from you. Ignorance is a way to kind of stay weak. Dear brothers and sisters, we must not forget that millions of people are suffering from poverty, injustice, and ignorance. We must not forget that millions of children are out of schools. We must not forget that our sisters and brothers are waiting for a bright, peaceful future. So let us wage a global struggle against illiteracy, poverty, and terrorism. Let us pick up our books and pens. They are our most powerful weapons. One child, one teacher, one book, one pen can change the world. Education is the only solution. Education first. Thank you. I like this quote too. I love this speech. Well, probably because I'm an educator and she's fighting for education so much. But I love how she wrote it. I love how young she was when she wrote it. Don't forget, you're going to have to answer the comprehension check questions. Okay, and I think that will be the end of the Zoom video. I will see you in class. I have to stop recording. Okay.